Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we are going to sketch a piece of garlic, and I was cooking last night actually, and I pulled off a couple cloves of this new garlic, and the purple cloves on the inside were so pretty that I thought they would make a really nice subject for Sketchbook Sunday. I'm working in the new Arteza toned gray sketch pad. I haven't used it yet, and I was curious to see how it would work with my pastels and pastel pencils. It's got a fairly smooth surface, so I was really quite surprised at how well it did. I'm using a white chalk pencil just to sketch in the basic shape here. I'm getting the bulb of garlic, or the head of garlic, and I like it because you can look in, especially the way I'm sitting and I'm kind of looking across at the garlic. I can see a couple cloves inside. I can see 3 of the cloves inside. I pulled one out and set one on the table so I'd have that shape, and then a couple of the like wrapper, what do you want to call it, like the onion skin, but it's like garlic skin, you know, the wrapping paper not wrapping paper, you know, it's the skin that grows on the garlic, I don't know what you call it. I put a couple pieces of that too. I sketched that in. I'm starting in with this very pale orange color, and just kind of putting in a little bit of that warm light orangey color I see. Then I'm going in with this purple. And by the way, these pastels are the Mungio handmade pastels. They are really soft, really nice. I got this out of 30, and I bought them on Amazon because they were half price from what they charge at Jerry's, and Jerry's has them half price of list. So I paid like 43 bucks for this box of 30, and the reason I bought it was because I taught a soft pastel course, and I'll link to that in the video description if you're interested. And I was looking for an alternative to the really soft Schmincke pastels I use because they have gone up so much. They're like $130 a box now. So I was looking for an alternative to those, and these did really well. Now I'm going in with some light yellow ochre and just kind of blocking in that tone, because even though you have something that's white, like the outside skin of the garlic, you're going to see so many other tones in there. You're going to see grays and yellows and browns and purples and peaches, and you want to get all those in. I haven't put any white in yet, and I'm going to reserve that for a while because I find whenever I'm working with pastels or oil paints, if I put the white in early, it just muddies everything up. So I want to wait until the end to add that. I'm using dark reddish brown to add in some shadows and also kind of outline some areas of the husks to just give them a little definition and warmth. And this color is really nice. It's almost like it's just this really rich brown. It doesn't look very red to me because it's such a deep color. By the way, all of the pigment information and light fast information is available online for these pastels, so I was very pleased with that. The only colors I use that could be slightly dodgy would be the purple, but that's still got a good light fast rating. It just doesn't have excellent. I'm using a cool gray number 6 for the shadows here. And the thing I liked about this color, actually, I could spread it out and get a really transparent, like get a lighter color through transparency. I could layer it up, and if I went with a lighter tone, which I do in some areas, it actually, because it has so much white in it, it doesn't work as well as a shadow as the cool gray 6. So that was kind of interesting. I didn't realize that because of the lower white coverage in there, I'm able to spread it out. These work really well with the Pan Pastel soft tool applicators. I think they're very similar in application and texture as the Pan Pastels. So if you like the Pan Pastels, I think you'll like this. They're very low dust. I think I had to remove the dust from my painting once, and that was it. Usually I'm tapping off especially on smooth paper, I'm tapping off my painting several times, but only once. So I was very pleased at how low dust this was. So very similar to the Pan Pastels in that respect. Now they weren't quite as soft as the Schmincke, but these would layer up over any of my typical medium soft pastels that I would use as the kind of nuts and bolts of a painting. So I think this could be a good dupe for the Schmincke pastels if you get them at a good price. If you're going to spend $100 for this set, though, I would just spend a few more dollars and go for the Schmincke, because the Schmincke pastels are they're really tough to beat. They are just so incredibly buttery and gorgeous. You can see that I did use some of the lighter gray in the body of the garlic because I was afraid that the cool gray 6 would get a little too heavy, so I used the cool gray 2. But I went back to the cool gray 2 because I just liked how I could spread it out. All the colors were opaque, obviously, but when I could spread that out and get a much lighter tone. And then I took some Prussian blue. Any place I wanted to really kind of kick up the shadows. I wanted to reserve my bright white and my black in case I need it at the end. Kind of like, you know, having a spare 20 in your wallet. Just in case you need it, you got it, but you might not. So that's kind of a tip when you're working with pastels, just to reserve a real dark and a white for the end so that you can go adjust those values if you feel like you need a greater range or things have gotten kind of muddy. Now for blending here, I'm using, this is a soft applicator, which is like a little eyeshadow applicator, and I'm also using some eyeshadow applicators. I was at the Christmas tree shop and I saw this set of, I think it was like 20, and they had different colored like sticks that the applicator was attached to, and I thought that was great because there was like 2 for each color, and then I could keep like my greens on the applicator with the green handle. I could keep my purples on the applicator with the purple handle, and that way I didn't have to worry about cleaning them or anything. And they've lasted really well. I've had them for probably like 3 or 4 years, and they haven't broken down yet. Not that I'm a real heavy user of them, but they seem to last a lot longer than the little applicator covers that go on top of my my pan pastel, like the long palette knife tools where you put the little socks on top. Those tend to just wear out a lot quicker. Maybe I use them more, I'm not sure, but I was really pleased with that budget find. I think it was like $2. So now I'm going back in with my pastel pencils with some like nice deep colors. These are the Van Gogh pastel pencils by Royal Talons. I think that they're still available in Europe, although they've been discontinued in America. So I'm glad I have these. They're my favorites. They weren't even very expensive. So if you can get your hands on these, I highly recommend them. They're just wonderfully soft. They're soft for a pastel pencil. They lay down really well, but they don't break. I can even sharpen them in my electric sharpener, and they work fine. So I really recommend that. I wish they were still available here. And I'm just kind of refining a little bit. And I do have a mishmash of different brands of pastel pencils here and Conte crayons, but I do like the Van Goghs an awful lot. But whatever you find that works good for you, then go for it. I heard the Derwent ones got reformulated and they're better now. I have a set of 24 of the Derwent ones that I'm not that crazy about, but because they're just so hard and kind of scratchy. But it could be they need a good sharpening. Maybe they've got some film on them. Who knows? Who knows? This color here was kind of interesting. It's a gray, but it's got like a very teal undertone. So I was kind of surprised by that. So I added it to many places so that it would look like it was on purpose, because I really wasn't anticipating that color when I painted it. And I'm using a really dark brown Conte and Van Gogh pencil just to give some dark shadows, and also I wanted to give the root part of the vegetable a little bit more texture. And then I'm going in with the brightest highlights just to kind of give me that extra boost. And you know, you can blend it in, you can leave it unblended. That's really up to you. I blend less as I go on with my painting. Or if I do blend my whites, then I usually end up going in again and just kind of giving them a little spark of color at the end. So you can use whatever technique you want, and if you prefer a more textured look, you don't have to blend. I find sometimes when I do a lot of blending, I just feel like I end up overdoing the steps over and over again when I could have just put it on once and left it. But you do get a nice richness of color and interest when you do a blended layer and then you go over it and you know have those refined layers at the end, and just having those several layers of color I think adds a little richness. And I was really surprised that this paper held up to all these layers because it doesn't feel that rough. So I will link that paper down below. I do like it, and I'm really curious to use it with some Conte crayons and also just like some charcoal and white chalk and just doing like a tonal sketch that way. I think it'll be a lot of fun to experiment with that, and maybe on a Sketchbook Sunday, we'll see. The real-time version of this that I narrated as I did it is available in Critique Club. If you're a member, you'll find it in the April section, so check that out. Also have a reference photo there. I know you can see the garlic the whole time, but I took a photo of it close up at my level and posted that in the group too, so you can have access to that as well as the real-time tutorial. And you know, this is my favorite part when I go in and I add those little final details and the final highlights. And I love using the pastel pencil over these pastels. For one, I'm glad that it held, but it gives you those little veins, those little details and lines. It's not going to take a tremendous amount of color because you're putting something harder over something softer, but it does accept it on top, which I think is really nice with these pastels. So I highly recommend them if you get them at a good price. They're they're wonderful, and it's the first time I've used handmade pastels before too, so I was excited to try that because I've never used any of those excuse me, other handmade pastels because, well, quite frankly, they're so expensive. So that does it for me. If you want more pastel tutorials, you can check out my course, Soft Pastels for Beginners, or Critique Club for this long real-time tutorial. Thanks for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.